What you've got here, the commissioning framework, the commissioning cycle, is really the steps that the board has endorsed as to how it is that we want to do commissioning. And I think what's important about this, we're going to spend a fair bit of time talking about this today, is that this is a cycle that feeds on one another, where all of these steps are required to do commissioning well. And if we go back to some of the things that are observed in the report, I think we can find in individual projects, projects that are doing some of those steps amazingly, but not necessarily doing all of them. Notice in other places where we're doing different steps at different times and not necessarily clear about how it is they connect. So what this framework actually takes us to is that we actually need to be doing all of those things, that each of these steps have a contribution to make to having the rigour that we want to do to create good services, and that we need to really understand what we require of ourselves at each one of those steps. You'll see there's three broad clumps. There's a technical term. Three broad clumps here. Strategic commissioning, which is very focused on understanding what is it we're seeking to achieve for the client. The second clump is service commissioning. That's much more focused on the systems. So what is it? How do we need to design services, plan systems, define how all the various moving parts move together, understand the market, so we are able to produce the services which support clients to achieve those outcomes. And the third is operational commissioning. How do we procure them? How do we set them up? How do we manage performance so that we know that the things that are being provided are actually doing the things we expect them to do and achieving the results we would expect them to along that journey? Each of these steps answers a different question, and what I want you to take away from this is that they're all important. Yeah? It's important that we be able to get the best answer we can at every one of these steps because they'll actually all feed one another. If we dive into choosing a random step, I don't know, shaping supply, without having been clear about what it is we're trying to achieve and some of those questions that happen at steps 1 and 2, then in fact we might be shaping supply for something which isn't likely to achieve the outcome that we want. Now that may not mean we have perfect answers in all of those. It may not mean that we have the opportunity to work through all of this every day in a clear and linear way. But I do think it's important to be aware about what are the answers and the input we need from some of the other steps or what we're producing for later steps so that we can actually translate this into good practice within the organisation.